Today, I'm speaking with MK Marsden, founder of Touchpoint Strategies. And what really caught my attention initially was the work she was doing around Touchpoint Strategies. But then, as I started to get to know MK a little bit more, I learned more about her focus on bridging STEM and women's sports, and particularly contact sports. And as I learned more, I think contact sports, contact executive, I think this all kind of comes together. Huge history and lots of knowledge. Welcome, MK, and maybe you maybe introduce yourself and maybe touch point strategies a bit.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt, and thanks for having me here today. So Touchpoint Strategies has been around for a long time. And what we've been always about is growth. So I started my career after a good upbringing with a lot of men's sports. So I'm pre-Title IX, as we discussed earlier. So 27 stitches in my face and my
Wow.
teeth put back in and things like that. So it does get you ready for business and venture capital raising and things like that. But I started in computer science and with the belief that computers would improve the quality of people's lives and improve productivity and let us connect more as humans. And I would say 42 years into my career, we're almost there. We're almost there.
We'll get there someday.
We will. And I think AI, generative AI, and other forms of AI are the connective tissue to that. And I know a lot of people are busy talking about the speeds and feeds of it and whether we should be learning it or teaching it in school or not. But for me, it's kind of like it's the culmination of writing internet protocols, writing database software, writing computer networks, writing MarTech. Like now we are at the place where we can use this stuff to connect so that we have time to do podcasts and talk about women's sports and make a bigger difference in the world than we could make in previous generations.
It's it's fascinating that you open having a conversation about both strategy and tactics and about the human experience. And I think that in this space, there's this constant focus on the micro, focus on the small, and people aren't stepping back and looking at the broader. Can you connect that a little bit more with Touchpoint Strategies and how you're thinking about that? Like, where does it fit more broadly, and how are you actually taking it to market?
Yeah, I think the issue we have, I love engineers and I love developers. But oh Lord, we just get into the same workflows over and over, a new version of the same old thing, right? And we go micro because that's where we they tend to do the work. And macro is complicated, right? Macro is systemic thinking. Macro doesn't have proper boundaries. It doesn't have beginning and middle or end. Depending where you're starting, then you go from there, right? Doesn't matter if it's business, doesn't matter if it's relationships, it doesn't matter if you're learning a sport. Wherever your natural strength is, you have to build out the rest. And so, for us at Touchpoint, we're users of most advanced technologies with the promise of delivering the proper experience to the customer. And in our case right now, it's salespeople and CROs and people who are in charge of growth. They don't want to be AI agentic framework experts. They don't want to be, you know, worried about ChatGPT 4.0 versus Gemini versus things like that. What they want is, how's this help me do my job? I want to take care of my clients. I want to understand their business problem. I want to make quota. I want to send my kids to college. How's it helping me with those deliverables,
Are you
not the
finding that
lower
they're
level?
able? Are you finding that they're able to make that separation, or are you finding that your customers are being required to learn more about the technology? Like what's the experience that you're seeing on the other side as people learn about your product?
So I'm trying to change it single handedly. I don't want to talk about any more tech ever. I've been talking about it for 42 years. I'm like so done. I want to be delivering proper outcomes. So there's a whole group of people that will learn it to a level. Let me
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, Matt. SaaS is a problem
Tell me more.
because SaaS put the system integration and the learning on the user.
Mm.
So there's only so much I, as a human, can learn. It doesn't matter if I'm a CFO, a head of sales, a CMO, or a software engineer, right? And so the fact that I have to learn every piece and part, and people think I should learn it at an expert level, every piece and part, is humanly impossible. I mean, that's why we're developing technology. If humans could do it, we'd let them do it. We can't. So why are we asking the humans to absorb all these technical details of every piece and part? No, bring them well thought out answers that enable them to do their function. Bring them automated workflows that make their workday more efficient and easier. Bring them the insights they need, right? But we just keep going back to speeds and feeds, and we've got to stop. We got to
We do.
stop.
That I find I'm seeing right now a lot of new AI native and companies that are really leaning into the AI product revolution, if you will. They're articulating, well, as you said, speeds and feeds, specific features, specific capabilities. I wonder if sometimes it's because they actually don't know what outcome they're actually providing. And I wonder how you're thinking about this as you're obviously having the conversation about outcomes. Um, does that change, how you think about something like pricing? Does it change how you think about the helping the customer understand the link between the outcomes you're providing and the methodology you're using? Can you talk a little bit about that part of the
Sure.
go-to-market learning?
Yep. So we went the other side of the bell curve. So I would
Okay.
say, automating the operations and automating business flows and automating workflows has been the front side of the bell curve. We went customer experience into operations. So we went the opposite direction. And anybody who's worked with me knows I'm contrarian, so they're not even surprised by that, right? So we went backwards. So we went, okay, in B2B sales or in any domain, what does the end user need and how do they do their work? And how could they do their work? And we watched that and we mapped it. And I've carried a bag. I've been an enterprise salesperson. I've been a CRO. I've been a CEO. I've been a CMO. So we looked at how people perform their work and where are the things that are getting in their way, where are the things that don't have value, don't make any sense, and could be eliminated with no negative consequence to
Mm.
the customer. So I agree with you. I think, when I was 20 and we were doing an object oriented database for personal computers, this was the mainframe era. I didn't know how people were going to use it. I just knew how the entity relationship model worked and how to do those things. I had zero understanding of the application of the technology. In fact, I'll admit publicly, when I was studying computer science, I didn't understand how that was going to work till I programmed in Logo and taught kids how to use Logo. And I was like, okay, now I understand where all these subroutines. I needed the user experience
Mm-hmm.
to understand the outcome of function. It's just the nature of how my brain works. So, what we've been focused on, and we live in go to market, right? We live in sales and marketing. Those are our customers. That's who we talk to all day long. So, we look at who's our customer's customer. Let's work backwards from there and then automate the things that are important and eliminate the things that are barriers to growth.
Do you find that in, by the way, thinking from the user first, that shouldn't be considered backwards. That should be considered forwards.
I
But
agree.
yeah, But as you're talking about some of the opportunities that you're creating and how you're solving problems, um, do you find your customers are seeing it as almost as magic? Like honestly, we've talked a bit about the kinds of what you're delivering in terms of visibility into who your buyer would be and what they need, and it is a type of magic, to be able to know who to talk to and exactly who is going to be the highest leverage point for you and how you're actually going to navigate your way, to your customer. And that's what you're, help enabling.
Mhm.
So how do you overcome the trust of the magic, right? The customer, I have to imagine, is looking at you and saying like, really, you're gonna solve that problem for me? Haven't been able to solve it in the past.
Yep.
How do you overcome that?
So we tell them the story first, right? Not the function, but like how we got here and how we evolved to this side. So we build a degree of trust. Then we show them flat out. I mean, show and tell is the best
Yeah, it's
form
amazing.
of sales, right? Like, okay, give me a client that you're interested in. Give me your very best account plan and everything you know about the client. And then give me an hour and I'll show you what I can find. And
One
then
hour.
if we want to talk about it, we can, because it's not really that complicated. We took human logic and we applied it to artificial intelligence because it can work faster across more data points, cheaper, like it's nano pennies on the dollar now, and it can interconnect patterns faster than we can. So there's not like, it's not even, it's magical, but it's not interesting.
Sure, that's actually a really good way to say it. It's interesting how, I mean, you said 1 hour, but like that's literally weeks of work previously,
That's
and to be able to
months.
turn, that's the part that to me is the magic. Like that's the moment for a customer with like, you're focused on my outcome, and you can prove it to me quickly. You can prove it to me now. Like that to me is the amazing experience
And
when they
what
start to see the
caused,
outcome.
yeah, what caused it was digitizing marketing.
Hmm.
When we digitized marketing and go to market, and we created all this content, and then we created LinkedIn, and then we created all these blogs and things like that. With it, we created all these buying signals. But no one but us yet has created the mechanism to read all those buying signals because we've all been so excited about putting the stuff out there. I'm excited about, well, what are they
Drawing it
saying
back.
about that? Drawing it
Yeah,
back.
drawing.
Oh,
Yeah.
look, they reposted my blog. It means this. Oh, look, they're hiring 150 Adobe programmers. Okay. You know, geez, Adobe, maybe you want to know that. Look, here's what's going on. Oh, they're playing golf with so and so. And it's all in the public domain. But no one, everybody's so busy talking, they've forgotten to listen. They're so busy pushing things out. They've forgotten to watch what the customer's telling them they want all day long.
It's funny. We tell our young ones, one mouth, two ears, but
Yeah.
we don't do it in practice.
No. No. Have you
The
ever met a one mouth, two ear go to market strategy person? Like, never.
I'm not sure executive either. We try hard. Um, you know, I You're talking about outcomes, and I'm gonna throw this at you a little bit left field, but
Sure.
there's some interesting conversation about using outcome based pricing as
Hmm.
opposed to what amounts to feature based pricing, right? More seats, more check boxes, usage even is a type of you have
Sure.
to really understand the technology to understand usage. But outcome based is an intriguing idea. I'm just wondering if you've thought about that before, if you've encountered that.
So I like the idea, but I'm not doing it yet. I need almost kind of version one or like this generation of delivery because I'm based on how the buyers are buying, not how the sellers are selling. And I also
Mm-hmm.
don't control the sales function, I'm just
Right.
enabling. I need a little bit more data to understand how I would price outcome based, right?
Yeah.
So I think Gen 2, I can do that, right? Where I know enough about, okay, in these verticals, purchasing goes this way, and these types of accounts grow by this amount and that amount. It also requires a fair amount of like measurement technology to be able to deliver it. And, we're self-funded startup stage. So that would be the kind of the next level of artificial intelligence design to be able to measure all that. So I think it's where we could get to as a company and as an industry. It's going to take a little bit more effort to be able to deliver on that.
I think my sense is similar. That's very intriguing. It doesn't feel like what you do first.
Hmm.
And I strongly resonate with the idea of the measurement gap because it's no longer measuring your own system. It's actually measuring in on the other side. You need to see the difference. And my other worry about outcome based pricing, I worry that it will accelerate commoditization because if the outcome, I know it seems backwards. Like
Yeah.
if you're providing the outcome and the values and you're increasing, improving whatever that particular outcome is, I do wonder if you're based on that, though, there's going to be more pressure, especially if you actually do your job really well and you turn a week into an hour. There might be even more pressure to say, well, yes, you move the outcome, but that outcome's not as hard to move any longer. So it may be hard to tie to sort of other more tangible facts. But I love the idea because I think it puts the user first. It puts the actual
Hmm.
customer first
Hmm.
and really forces the organization building the product to put themselves in the shoes of the customer. And I find that that is so difficult to do, which is why you're talking about having to go backwards. Again, I think it's forward, but that's so difficult to do as you try to
I
pull
would
in.
go up in price. If I can prove outcomes, then I would argue, and I will when we get to that stage, that I'm more valuable the more outcomes I produce. I mean, that's how we would argue productivity,
Right.
right? So our inside out approach would have us commoditizing. Outcome based could have us price on value of outcome and could increase as your system gets smarter, learns more, and delivers more value. So when you think about the other side of the bell curve, you think of it holistically from a pricing standpoint, from a service standpoint, so if what we've been doing is pushing, now what does the pull model look like? Well,
Mm.
could increased value be increased pricing?
Yeah,
Increase.
that's really interesting. Yeah, especially if you as you start to build a track record, as you start to build, um, you can point back to the historics and say, look, this is the trend and this is where it's moving. Therefore,
Hmm.
and as you introduce improvements in that space, whatever the outcome is, if you can, leads generated, opportunities created, if you can show that you're demonstrating higher quality opportunities and more of
Yeah.
them, then suddenly you can maybe notch it. There's another
Shorter
notch there.
timeline to revenue,
Yeah.
decreased cost of sales, higher retention, lower headcount requirement to service, all of those things. And if you can elevate the human to human,
Hmm.
because you're automating the parts that are just repetitious and not so valuable, then what value have you created? Then what are people, what's the price of freedom to be able to do your job unencumbered and really work with your client? I think people would pay a lot for that.
Well, I love the idea, as you just did, talking the second order effects. So you're focused initially, on something simple like number of prospects, but then you start to see the second order effect, as you mentioned, that time's getting shorter. Bring that in. There's all these other opportunities for improvement that link as you go from one focal point to the next. I'm, excuse me. I wonder as you think about that, how does it affect adoption? If you're starting to get to that side of the conversation of
You don't bring it
improvements
up in the
where,
beginning. you just talk to Matt about it. You don't you don't bring this up to customers, right? Prove level one on, unquestionably, prove it, right? Deliver it, produce the outcomes that you've committed to producing for your clients, measure it for them, and have them acknowledge that you have delivered on those outcomes, right? Then do your level two. But yeah, never take humans to the end state. We just get really confused.
Yeah.
So just take me to tomorrow's a better day than yesterday was. And this quarter I performed better than last quarter. And, it's the same with the athlete, right? Like you don't try to run a 6-minute mile, when you've been sitting on the couch for 40 years. First, put the running shoes on and
You
go
walk
for
a
a
mile
walk. Yeah,
in that case.
exactly. Exactly.
But I'm also finding though that this current wave of products are changing human behavior. And I think that's the side of adoption. And I agree, the pace of adoption, 100%. But I'm finding that even just to get started, people have to be willing to think differently about their job and their role and how they're operating as they gain this information. Or at least that's what I've been seeing. Maybe you see something, have been seeing
Well, I
something
was going to
different.
say, give me an example because we're seeing that people are, and we're working with a lot of early adopters. Like we're working in tech and we're working in digital marketing and we're working in data, right? So we're working there. Mostly people are, experimenting at best, I would say. I wouldn't say anybody is into adoption, behavior change, change management. Now, in fintech and in operations and things like that, yeah, but in go to market, marketing, sales, retention, customer delight, like we're all still trying to figure out, what's important, what's valuable. Does this deliver in a way that meets the need? I think we're still at very, very early. That's why I
Very
always
early
laugh when people,
stages. Interesting.
yeah, and when
The
people say like you're going to fall behind. Oh yeah, but well, people have been telling me I'm going to fall behind for 42 years. So like,
hasn't
it's
happened yet.
like no, no, not yet.
In the developer space, there was without a doubt a learning curve using the copilots where
Hmm.
people had to change how they wrote code because suddenly, particularly rote code, I'll call it, or templated code, I don't know whatever you want to call it, but like structures that were just more straightforward could just be produced by the copilot. And so people had to learn to start trusting the copilot to some degree, reviewing it, knowing how to make tweaks, knowing how to ask the right question. And so now, if you wanted to gain the accelerant of having a copilot as part of your coding, you had to change your behavior of how you coded.
Yep.
I'm seeing the same thing on prospecting. So as we bring in as people sign up and we pass it along to Clay, we're actually using prompts and we're using AI to enrich who is it that just came in and can we help them in some way? What are they interested in? Are they working on agents? Are they working on something else? Always trying to understand who is this person who just arrived and how can I best help them. But in the past that would have been a drip campaign, right?
Yep.
Well, that's not very helpful. Drip campaigns are just generic. Now you can actually spend a moment to try to understand who this person is and send back something that's personalized, something that's specific to them and their conditions. Well, that requires a different way of thinking. Not that one shouldn't be thinking that way to begin with, but it's not necessarily present until people have been confronted and have the opportunity. And I think that's the change in behavior I'm thinking about is incorporating these tools into the daily work and figuring out how do you start to trust a tool that you've maybe never seen before and you already have your defined paths. I think that's the side of adoption that I'm sort of scratching at to figure
Yeah,
out.
so you're on our side of the bell curve, right? Because what you've just described is market in. One, I'm going to recognize it as a human being. It's not a click, it's not a eyeball, it's a human. And it has a function and a purpose for being here. And it is either intending to learn or intending to discover or intending to buy. So just that first layer of, you know, we used to do data recognition. Now we're doing human recognition. Great. Let's recognize it as a human being. Now let's personalize based on the other data ingredients that we've got, but from that design of like market in. So for developers, yeah, that's different because they've worked from operations out. What I'm all excited about with, Gen AI and co-pilots and agents is now the people with the business experience who do think about the human beings, who do know how people consume media or do know how people consume products and things like that. Now they can create the technology without the software developer, without the MRD to PDR to this to
Yeah.
that, and
All the ingredients.
the arguments that I have had that the stop button should be under start. Like, why are we having this conversation, right? Like, this is insane. Yeah, it's easier to code. Don't care, right?
Yeah. Well, why is that? Yeah.
So I find that if you were once doing anything one way, yes, you have to change. If you were locked out of programming applications and business productivity, and you come in now, you come in as a workflow expert, prompt engineer, CX expert, whatever. And yeah, you're doing something different, but you're not, unlearning a programming skill. You're unlearning non-automated functions. And it's happening
Well,
fast.
and you're also learning to not hold back. Like you can now
True.
ask for that correct thing that you've always known was the right answer in the
That's right.
actual experience. You don't have to be blocked and gated. You can actually say, no, no, we'd like to have let's try having this kind of relationship with our customer. Let's try having this conversation with our customer. And the excuse of, well, that's going to be hard, and it's going to be weeks, and I'm not sure. No, let's do it because we know we can, and it's
That's
much
right.
more straightforward. And I think in a lot of cases you can even do it yourself. And I think that's the other piece that we're not completely there yet, but we're going pretty
Oh,
quickly
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I'm seeing people able to build quite a lot and do quite a lot on their own. I guess we call it vibe coding, but whatever we want to call it, the if you can articulate what you're trying to achieve with the customer, whether it's enrichment, a new app, a new experience, a new moment, then there's a good chance you put it in place much more quickly. And I don't yet know how this will change behaviors, but I do think it will redefine um, the daily work in some of the roles that we
I
see.
think
May
so
not
too.
change the roles, that may not change the titles of the roles, but it may change the how you actually move it forward.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you look at transportation, right? Like just look at the from the horse to the Ford automobile, any color but black, to, the industrial age to the digital age to now we've got taxis that drive themselves in Austin, Texas. We're going to do the same thing in all technologies and all human interactions. So what's exciting for me is like where you are in the marketplace, like go to market. That is the intersection that needs to be effectively automated, that needs human design, because it is where product and business touch the human being, right? So go to market, in our case, growth and really the selling function. Okay, well, at the end of the day, the contract gets written by a human, signed by a human, and humans, get at it. And I think that's where we're going to see just a major shift. Right now in the automobile industry version of go to market and sales, we have to make the kit car every morning and then we drive to work and then we come out and the kit car is falling apart. We have to put the kit car back together and then we get to drive home, right? There'll be a day where we get to it's seamless and that connection that we get to create will be relevant and material and we'll all have the information we need to better serve each other, and we're not far from that. We're not far
Yeah,
from that.
it feels like we're getting there very quickly, this next version. Um, Thank you for your time. I'm going to wrap up with one last question. Um,
Okay.
and I think very much in the same vein of what we were just talking about in terms of a human skill. What do you think is the sort of next human skill that people have got to figure out as more and more AI shows up in our daily lives?
Yeah. So in our company, the number one is curiosity.
Mm,
Start questioning. Question why you're wasting time. Question why you're not delivering that email campaign that you know is going to make a difference to that person. Like get curious, like re-stimulate your curiosity. And then right behind it then is and have the courage to do something. Try it. I'm teaching a class to seniors on AI, right? And it's like, do your will and, write poetry to your grandkids and create the children's book you
love it.
always wanted to create that you never had time for and, thought you needed a typewriter, right? Like, get curious, but curious in the application of it. And just, I always lean towards the side of and cause something good while you're at it, right?
Have
And then
have a
let's get more
purpose.
women. Let's get more women. More women,
Yes,
more women, more women, please. More women in AI, more women in data. We have to get rid of the bias of design. We have to get rid of the bias of operating. So let's get more women. So, women, get curious, get courageous, and come on in.
and take the risks. Let's do it. I think
Yep.
that's the other piece I think that's implicit in what you're describing. So thank you so much today. Great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. Likewise. Have a good weekend. Thank
You too.
you.